Well, hello everyone. Good afternoon. How are you doing? Good. Well, listen, welcome to the start of Founders Week. We've got a number of activities this week, and this formally kicks it off. I was just having a sidebar conversation with Kalila. She's experienced something similar to me when I first got to Butler. There's a relative of either Ovid or Ovid Butler who was trying to tell us the correct pronunciation of our founder's name, which would be kind of a good thing. We probably all should agree on that. But when I first got here at Butler many years ago, I had heard it was Ovid, so I was going along fine for about a month or two, and then she told me that her side of the family said that it's Ovid, and that would have put me in a position of going against what I was hearing, and so as a new president, that wasn't necessarily good, but Kalila had a similar conversation. So I don't know that any of us really know. There's different sides of the family. If it's, I have kind of lapsed into what seemed to be the natural pronunciation. So it seems like maybe a good place to start. So our university was founded by Ovid Butler, or Ovid Butler, in 1855. But more importantly, these things get lost over time. The founding mission was established for the university, and the thing that we celebrate and having a week like we have here ahead of us to put a spotlight on it is the idea that the university at the time, as he founded it, was to be a place that was open to all, regardless of background, whether it happened to do with race, the vernacular of the day, right? Race, creed, or color, we very much embrace and celebrate it today. Obviously, the notion of diversity and what that means, and equity and inclusion has continued to evolve, but we very much celebrate that the intention and the founding mission is something that is central to what we do here at Butler, and we are quite proud of that. It's one of those things, quite frankly, as a university president, when I'm out there talking about Butler and what we mean and what we value, to be able to cite that in our DNA is so important, and it very much drives us moving forward. Our history over time is, there's like any other history of people and organizations and so forth. There's some highlights and there's some lowlights. We've had that in our past, and we have to recognize that, because from the times that you have done some things that are not appropriate or missteps or evil or whatever they might be, the question is, what are you going to do to correct them and to move forward? Even in my time here, now into the 12th year, there's things that have emerged that have been complicated. I actually had a great conversation last week with Anthony Murdoch, who goes by Doc or Murdoch, if some of you know him, who when he was a student here, he was very much an advocate, and he was not happy as a black student on our campus back in 2015-16, and we had some difficult conversations and challenges at that time. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, because some of you may or may not know, but he taught here this last semester. So he went on to get his law degree, and he's very much an activist, and my God, this is an alumni that's going to continue to go far and to well represent us. But we talked through that kind of, his being angry and seeing things as a student here that were not acceptable, and he was right. And thankfully, people like Murdoch have brought that to our attention. He's just one of many over time. And now, after being here last semester, he taught over in LSB. He did a great job. Students loved him. And now he looks at himself as very much an advocate of Butler and trying to help us to move forward. So we have, over time, we've especially now, we've made issues of diversity and inclusivity part of our strategic priority, and developed a whole bunch of action plans to help support that. One of the most significant things that I think we have done, and it's taken time, was to find Kalila. Kalila wasn't too far away either. She lived, about 5-6 minutes away from campus, but I had the good fortune about a year ago at this time, when we were kind of coming into the final round of preparing over 5 or 6 years for the Sigma Gamma Rho event, 100th anniversary of that founding. Kalila was very instrumental to that, and we were at a dinner and we got talking, and when I heard that she had been doing DEI work for some 20 years at a campus up north here downtown, I said, well, why aren't you here? She shared with me why she wasn't. And even from that, that's a learning opportunity. Somebody that has observed us from afar and to say, well, that's why we need you on the team. And so we are quite fortunate that Kalila is with us. And to kick off Founders Week, she's put together a few things that she'd like to share now that she's been here since, I think, around September, something like that or so. But I was just so impressed with what she's done. She did a great job at Convocation last year speaking when she wasn't quite with us. She was recently asked by the city of Indianapolis to speak at their MLK event, and really has hit the ground running, and I know many of you have had a chance to meet with her. So with that, I'm going to turn the podium over to the capable hands of Kalila Shabazz. Kalila.
Good afternoon. Happy Founders Week. So I am absolutely delighted to stand before you this first time. Those of you who are physically in the room and my virtual audience, wherever you are. It has just been a pleasure the last 4.5 months, almost 5 months, since September 12th. To be a part of the Butler community. And, you know, when we thought about what Founders could look like this year, I thought, well, I wanted to do some things a little bit differently. So hopefully you've seen the calendar that has gone out. So today is going to be kind of a whole lot of information in a very short period of time, but I'm doing that purposefully so you can see all of the things that are before us that we will be addressing as a campus, and the individual and collective work that we have to do to make our entire campus experience better. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started with this forum. And in doing so, I want to be sure initially to acknowledge the land on which we are inhabiting. We are working, some of us live, some of us play in this space. And so I'm thankful for the Jordan College of the Arts who developed this land acknowledgement. And we soon will have a campus-wide one that will be available, if not this one. So we acknowledge that we gather here at Butler University on the traditional land of indigenous peoples, including the Potawatomi, Miami, Delaware, and Shawnee. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the indigenous peoples past and present who have stewarded it through the generations. This calls us to commit to continuing to learn how to be better stewards of the land we inhabit, while also acknowledging that some were brought to this land not by choice. So let's talk a little bit about where we're going in these next about 40 minutes. I will admit that it is a lot of information. I have slides that have data. If you don't like data, you're really not going to like those 8 slides. However, I think that it's really important to present to you as much information as possible. I'm going to give you the highlights, but this will be available to you to go back and review on your own. And I'm doing that in the spirit of being transparent, trying to be thorough, and to let you know what we have at our fingertips that we will be diving deeper in as the semester continues. So we've only been doing this for 4 months. I keep saying we like I have a team yet, but I don't. We're working on that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about who is a chief diversity officer? What do they do? What does that mean? Give you a quick snapshot of the first 4.5 months since I've been here. Talk about our campus demographics, including information on student, staff, and faculty experiences based on some recent surveys that were done and the recent analysis of those surveys. And then I'll share a little bit about where we are headed. So I couldn't do that without talking a little bit first about all of the amazing work that happened well before I got here. I acknowledge so many groups, individuals, and initiatives that before I even stepped foot on this campus, when I was down at that other place, we're really taking the lead on doing this work. And I'm really thankful that I didn't come in with a completely blank slate, because I'm sure my hair would be all over my head right now if so. But I really do want to, extend my gratitude to the many, many individuals, and particularly the DEI working group that worked really, really hard last summer to lay out the Strategic Priority 5 initiatives. And that team was led by Jennifer Bowerstock, who I think is in the room somewhere. Raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. And I also, know that over, the years, there have been many other initiatives, so this is not a comprehensive list or slide. Just know that I thank you for all of the work that you all have done before I ever even got here that's helped me to pull pieces together as we move forward. So I figured some of you know some things about me, some of you don't know anything about me, but just really, really, really quickly. So yes, I was at IUPUI for 21 years in various roles relative to DEI, but most recently as their Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Diversity. I also have a picture up there of that woman who is also a Butler alum, my great-grandmother and I. That picture represents about the age that she began to raise me. And so she was about 80 years old when we lived right around the corner. And I, enjoyed life at Butler from literally right there coming to campus quite a bit. I have 4 daughters that I birthed and 4 bonus daughters. The daughters that I birthed, this is for the parents who may be listening, I understand because I have 2 that graduated college, 1 that's finishing college, and 1 that decided college was not an option, didn't want to do that. And so I've had this kind of, varied experience about what this entire collegiate experience can be as a parent, as an administrator, as a faculty member, all of those things that I think have informed the work that I have done, not just on campus, but across the U.S. I, do get speaking engagements like the one for the city, as well as I had the joy, it was a joy, of doing the diversity training for the entire Container Store. Invite everybody, so everyone at the Container Store, headquarters staff, as well as all of their leaders, both locally and internationally, went through DEI training, a 4-hour session with me last fall. I did about 10 sessions over the course of a week, so that was crazy. But it was an amazing opportunity to talk with corporate leaders, including the CEO himself, who sat in the room going, yeah, I really needed this, and I need you to come back because you got to do it again in 2023. And so I get to do those things, and I don't take that for granted. I think that that is a testament to the hard work that it takes and the continual learning that is required when you do DEI work. And if you didn't know, you should know I'm a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. I serve as the International Anti-Grammatius, which is the secretary, and I am in my 2nd term in that role and thoroughly enjoy it. And properly representing Sigma Gamma Rho colors is my doggy in the middle sky. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about who your Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer is in terms of the role. And, I'll just highlight a couple of things. I was brought here to lead the development and the execution of our strategy for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I don't do that by dictating exactly what we have to do. I think it's very important for me to listen to you, to understand our culture, our environment, and then to develop a plan that will work best for our campus. And so that's why I pride myself in being a collaborative partner. I've met with a lot of constituents already, stakeholders across the institution, but I am really intentional about hopefully building relationships. I'm in Jordan Hall 108. My door is always open, well, when I'm not in a meeting. But I do welcome your feedback, your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, your comments about how we best do this work together. If I had to put it in a statement, I would say that I am a holistic, centered DEI catalyst who plans to do this work through care, collaborative relationships, and transformational or transformative strategic leadership and change. And so those are sort of a summary of the big things that you can expect out of me in this role. So what have I been doing for these first 4.5 months? Well, those two pictures that you see are very different photos. One looks like a party city off the coast of Miami, probably. But the other one are, this kind of going in the same direction. I feel like that's what I've experienced since I started in September, is we got a whole lot of boats in the water. They're all being, moving, but they're all moving in their own directions. And as the person who's kind of trying to come and bring us together, I'm not telling you how to row your boat. I'm not telling you how deep your oar needs to be. I'm just saying I want us to all go in this direction. And that's how I see how we can do this work collaboratively. And so some of the things that I've had the opportunity to do is weigh in on different, DEI-related matters across the institution. If you started after January 3rd, you saw some new HR DEI component material in orientation. I've met with well over 100 faculty, staff, and students. Students are my favorite. I've attended several campus and community events. My first campus event was the Latinx Student Organization did a kickoff of the Latino Heritage Month, and that was pretty awesome outside by the Star Fountain. I remember now. And so, have been able to experience a lot of different things. Now, what are some of the observations? I kind of was centering what I was experiencing or when I was talking to people or observing things around three things. What are some things that we might need to elevate, amazing things that are happening across the institution that really we just need to maybe better resource or provide more visibility to? What are some things that we need to enhance? So there might be things that need some tweaks, right? Some programs or some structures, they work, but they're not working quite like we need them to. So we need to probably enhance those things. And then what are some things that people just need to be educated about that exist? We have lots of things that are happening all over the institution that are DEI, that are relative to DEI, but not necessarily, people don't know about them. Lots of people don't know about them. And so how do we, make it a priority to educate our own community about the things that we're doing? I also found that there are many, many instances of duplicative efforts. Lots of the same thing happening. And so that's why creating a DEI leadership team is important with representation from across the institution so that we can share resources. There shouldn't be any reason why there's one day there are 5 different DEI talks happening because everybody wants to celebrate. We love that everybody wants to celebrate, but how can we do that in a coordinated way where people don't feel pressed to choose one thing or the other, or they simply don't know enough about one thing because one thing is getting more press or priority than the other. And so that was one of the things that I noticed initially. We have great energy around implementing DEI initiatives, programs, and activities. And, initiatives and programs are great. And we just want to make sure that we have the analytics to support, how are things, when we're doing all these programs and initiatives, are they, benefiting us? What's the sort of the ROI on these things? Are people actually attending? Are people, gaining something from these things? We all know, resources are tight. And so we want to best utilize and share our resources so that we can, definitely have programs and activities and events, initiatives that people can take part of, but do it in a way that we still are able to be, financially responsible and, meet the needs of our community. One of the other observations is that there is definitely a gap in baseline data. And you'll hear me talk about that a little bit here in a little bit. And so I asked, lots of questions when I first got here, like, okay, tell me our demographics of this. Tell me, at the intersection, what does this look like? And it was kind of a challenge of, how do we get information? And as someone charged as a DEI officer, it's difficult to say, okay, we need to, improve by X percentage points if we don't know baseline, right? And so what you're going to experience in some of this data is us beginning to work hard to establish baseline data. And ultimately, the goal is some of the things that you see today will be turned into sort of an annual DEI report that we will be able to report on our demographics. We will be able to be aware of our campus climate data and be able to start seeing trends and changes. But we have to establish that baseline first. And I was going to mention about the conversation, President Danko beat me to it, that I had with Demi Butler-Hicks last week. It was an amazing conversation just talking about, the parallels in our lives in terms of descendant legacy and all of those things. And yes, she was very insistent that it's Ovid Butler, not Ovid. All right, so, okay, here comes that data. You won't be able to read it, okay? It's small. So you'll be able to access the PowerPoint afterwards. I'm giving you that advance notice that it's kind of small unless you squint really, really hard. But before I move into that, I really do want to give a huge thanks to Dr. Amia Foston, who is the Director of Institutional Research and Assessment. I've bugged him. I've been hollering about baseline data since the first time that I engaged in a conversation with him, and he finally said, I got something for you. And so I'm really, really, really thankful that, he has worked hard to get me some demographic information that we will build upon. So it's not going to be comprehensive. It doesn't show all of the things I think we should be capturing as an institution, but it's a start. And so I really want to applaud him for assisting with that and his team. And I also have to give a shout out to Bridget Uhas, she's the Director of Student Affairs Assessment and Strategy. And so she works on those student pieces. So Amia will work on the staff and faculty and the general as well as student, but she really hones in on the student experience. And so, I don't know, is Bridget here? No? But she has done an incredible job of really unpacking the survey data from the Diverse Learning Environments survey that was issued last spring. And so that's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the demographics of our students first. I told you you can't see it. However, what I really want to highlight on this particular slide is what our enrollment numbers look like and sort of how they are trending. In terms of our, student enrollment effective fall 2022, and I think, this was fall 2022. Our students of color are 17.8% of our student population, and then there's an additional 1.2% that are identified as international students. One of the things that we're going to work to do effective this next fall and students who are coming in is to broaden the information that we're capturing about our students so that we can disaggregate, well, if a student says that they were Asian, who are they? Because that is not one community, right? And so we're going to work to provide an opportunity for students to tell us more about who they are and the identities that they hold when they come to the institution. But one of the things that I think is important to know is sort of our trend. So we have stayed fairly consistent with the majority of our populations, even through COVID. This is our all full-time undergraduate students is the table that's at the top. And our Hispanic or Latinx population has increased quite a bit. I want you to keep that in mind. So in 2018, we had 4.4% of our undergraduate students were Hispanic and Latinx. 2022, we are up to 6.4%. That's a pretty good growth rate. And based on the changing demographics of the nation, we understand these numbers will continue to increase, particularly amongst our student of color populations. And so Again, we're going to work to know more about how our students are trending. Why are we staying the same, right? Why are our numbers kind of staying right, hovering around certain percentages for, say, for our Black student population? So our Hispanic Latinx population represents 6.4. Our Asian population is 4.1%, so it's 173 students. Latinx was 272 students. And our students who identify as Black or African American is 3.8%, or 163 students. Our international, 49 students at 1.2. American Indian, 7 students, so 0.2%. And our two or more races, 143 students at 3.4%. 21 students indicated that they did not answer or submit their information about their race or ethnic identity. And then our white student population is 80.5%, so 3,420 students. So I want to talk a little bit about the diverse learning environment and what some of these students shared in that. And again, this is data that I have borrowed with permission from Bridget Uhas in Student Affairs. And I kind of summarized it a little bit differently by putting the information side by side. And so just a little context about the DLE. It's a pretty well-known national survey tool that is used. 18 schools participated in the cycle. 10 of those schools were private institutions. And so when the words significantly more Butler students say, that's in comparison to those groups, either the 18 or the 10. And so what we know is that significantly more Butler students than those other institutions say that they are empowered by the faculty. They believe the faculty believe in their potential. They have people who have invested or taken an interest in their development, that they feel a sense of belonging to the college. And I want you to, this is significantly more, but we're going to disaggregate this, which is what often doesn't happen with data. So we're going to talk a little bit deeper about that particular one in a moment. Our students, more than those other institutions, attend events focused on DEI. There's probably some reasoning to that, right? We have some requirements for our students. They are overall satisfied with a sense of community. They feel challenged to think more broadly about issues. They can recognize the biases in their own thinking, and they critically evaluate their own privilege. So this is what they thought and these are all things that were significantly greater than their peers at other institutions. But let's talk about some of the other things, right? So what they said that was fewer. Even though they said, hey, we feel more challenged to think more broadly about an issue, they really didn't like it. So our students are significantly fewer Butler students are open to having their views challenged. Significantly fewer of our students can discuss and negotiate controversial issues. Our students feel that Butler has a less, or they don't believe that we have a long-standing commitment to diversity. They feel significantly fewer Butler students say that Butler accurately reflects diversity of its student body in its publications. They don't believe that we have a strong racial ethnic diversity of a faculty, staff, and student body, and that we have fewer socioeconomic diversity on our campus. So just keep that in mind when we think about what our students, we have some great successes, right? But we also recognize that we got to do some work in terms of what we're sending our students out into society with the tools and the skills to be able to do things such as have their views challenged, right? Or being able to discuss controversial issues. So I told you I wanted to dig a little bit deeper in terms of that belonging, that sense of belonging. So these slides represent students who disagree with a statement that they are a member of the college and that they have a sense of belonging. And I want to point your attention to the percentage of students who disagreed that they feel that they are a member of Butler University. And the students who disagreed the most were our Black and African American students, our first generation students, and our students who identify as part of the LGBTQ plus population. So that's another, when you look at the whole, and that's why it's so important, and I've asked Ami, I think 100 times, I need disaggregated data. I need to see those. Because sometimes people think, oh no, we're great. But then when you really start looking at intersections of identity, we could take this down even further and look at what does an Asian LGBTQ plus student who's a member of a particular religious identity feel about their experience, and have a very different response. But that's how my eye is kind of trained to think, and so those are the stories and the narratives and the experiences that I want to make sure we uncover, because those are the ones that are being shared outside of the Butler community that affect whether or not a student wants to come here. The right slide shows the students who feel a sense of belonging to the college. And remember, I told you the numbers of the students who were included in or are part of our community. And so this shows, 42% of Black and African American students felt that they disagreed with feeling like they belong at Butler University. 42%. 32% of our students who identify as multiracial, and we're also working to disaggregate that too, to see who is in that multiracial category. First generation students, our LGBTQ plus students, and then our Asian students. So as you can see, the larger picture looks great, but when we start really thinking about where and what our students are truly experiencing in their respective classroom spaces, or just generally across the institution, it's a very different narrative. And so we're gonna work to unpack that and see what we can do to improve how our students respond to DLE in another year and a half, I think, when they take it. And the last one that I will share with you that Bridget shared as well is the percentage of our students who've witnessed discrimination, either often or very often. And this particular one is interesting. Our Hispanic and Latinx students expressed that they have seen it very often or often, so 25. And then our Black students, our Asian Pacific Islander students, 2 or more races, and then our white students reporting that they had not seen discrimination or witnessed discrimination. And so what's interesting with that is, well, that could be like, oh, well, they don't see it, right? But the question is, why are they not seeing it? Are they not in spaces where they're interacting with someone who's different than they are? Are they not understanding what they're seeing in terms of what's discriminatory behavior? So there's a lot that we can unpack there that I think would be beneficial to understanding what that number means. Okay, so we're moving from students to faculty and staff. So this is the hot off the press demographics that Amia helped to develop. And again, doesn't have all of the things that we want to eventually capture, but it's a start. So this table represents all of our full-time faculty, full-time and part-time faculty, as well as full-time and part-time staff. So our grand total is 1,431. And our grand total of employees of color is 207. And what's probably important to note here is we have a high number of individuals who work here that choose to not report their race. And I'll come back to that here in a bit, but I think there's some reasoning for that. And the other thing that I'll point out, so employees of color represent 14.5% of our employee population. And there's some trends there that I think are worth acknowledging and paying attention to in terms of who stays at the institution, and we'll have some data that now we have a baseline, we can kind of track, who's coming, who's leaving, and when, and then be able to work to address that. Remember when I talked about the students, the Latino or Hispanic students and the growth rate? Well, we have 64 individuals who represent that identity who work here. And so we have to be consciously thinking about, if we're gonna have more Latinx students and we're gonna be welcoming and inclusive of them, we gotta make sure that we are representational in who we have at the institutions who serve them. All right, so I'm gonna move through some things quickly because I got my kind of warning. Darn, already. Sorry. Okay, so remember, you're gonna have access to this, so it's okay, you can ask me questions later. But I wanted to quickly show a few of the responses to the campus climate and institutional support data that staff and faculty completed. And it's very thin, but there's a black line there that kind of gives you the above and below. So it's the mean that the vertical line represents. The next few slides will show the same in terms of the demographic data that's captured down the left side. So it's gender, race, and ethnicity. So each of those color bars represent those things. So gender, race and ethnicity, age, educational attainment, sexual orientation, religious affiliation, political views, and impairment. And so in terms of level of satisfaction with the following: overall campus climate, sense of belonging, and that they feel as members of the community, generally, for most groups, they are above the mean. There are a few groups who are pretty close. So individuals who preferred not to answer in terms of their race were pretty close. The younger they got, the more closer they were to the mean. And the scale there was very dissatisfied. So 1 is very dissatisfied to 5 being very satisfied. So that's what you see would be the 5. The group that was at or below the mean was our LGBTQ+ faculty and staff. Our staff who have other religious affiliations, so outside of Christianity, or being atheist, agnostic, or individuals who preferred not to respond. So Buddhist, Hindu, Jewish, etc., were ones who shared that they did not have the same level of satisfaction, or lower satisfaction, actually. And then individuals with temporary or long-term disabilities, staff and faculty, who were closer to that mean of being neutral or less than satisfied, okay? Similar structured data for this one, but the question that was asked here is: the campus environment is free from tensions related to individual or group differences. And it asks questions about recruitment and retention efforts, and that senior leadership demonstrates a commitment to diversity. And for this, the scale was strongly disagree to strongly agree. So 1 is strongly disagree. So again, you can see who's coming relatively close to that mean or that neutral. And so non-white individuals who were younger than 34, were closer to the disagree side. Our LGBTQ+ faculty and staff, our spiritual but not religious, other religious affiliation, our liberal faculty and staff, and individuals who had a temporary or long-term disability. And then the last one that I will share is individuals who have experienced during their time insensitive or disparaging remarks, or they've seen it or experienced it themselves. And amongst this, the individuals, and so the scale was never or rarely all the way up to very often. And interestingly enough, individuals who had an associate's degree, or only an associate's degree, as some people may say, were the ones who reported either seeing or experiencing more insensitive or disparaging remarks, along with members of the LGBTQ plus population, other religious affiliations, and individuals who had either a temporary or a long-term disability. And this is the discrimination and harassment. When I said it was one more, but this is the last one. And so these are the individuals who reported being discriminated against or harassed on the Butler campus at an off-campus residence or program or event. And so a significant number of people chose not to respond to this question more often than not. And so that, to me, is indicative of a fear of sharing and reporting information, which is something that we want to address as an institution with our bias policies and practices and how we follow up on those. Okay, so take a breath with me. I know that was a lot, and I got a whole couple of minutes. But I want to quickly share where we're headed. So many of you have hopefully seen the amazing work that has been established through the Strategic Priority 5. There was a call to action or a call to serve. How many of you in this room are on an initiative team? Several people. Thank you again for stepping up and being willing to serve. So we are moving and working under these initiatives. The teams are all actively advancing their work. They might be sort of bugging some folks for information, and I hope that you will assist them. But the goal is that we have actionable items and things that we can do. All things are designed to move towards the goal to create an intentionally diverse, inclusive, and equitable learning and working environment. And our pillars are representation, belonging, and engagement. And so within the 4 initiatives, they're focusing intently on how to address and move the needle in terms of those particular DEI areas. We've done a whole lot. I've done a lot since September. There's a whole lot more to come. We have, and I'm not going to read this to you, I'm not even going to tell you about it, much more than the fact that what should be circulating to you is a draft of a university DEI statement. We're also working to develop a comprehensive glossary of university terms. So how does Butler University define diversity or equity or inclusion, right? So that we all have common language around all of these things. And lastly, I'll share this in my 1 minute remaining, I think, or 2. So as I'm working to build the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, it will focus, it's shaping out to focus on 3 big areas. The first one is inclusive climate and practice, which connects to our core pillars of representation and belonging. And this is really thinking about how we're addressing policies and practices on campus. What's the bias incident process look like? How do we need to improve it? The second area is programming and engagement, which is that same core pillar. And this is thinking about how we celebrate, recognize, acknowledge in various ways on campus. So founder celebration is a part of that particular imperative, the programming engagement piece. And then the last one is learning and development. And we'll be working across units to think about how we do DEI education and training at the institutional level. How do we offer it to you, whether it's virtual, in-person training, et cetera. And so lots of things have been sort of occurring. It's sort of like this rolling big ball. I feel like a tumbleweed. I'm picking up things as I'm going, and some things might be falling off. But I hope this gave you a snapshot into how much there is for us to do. And I'm just really trying to galvanize the team to kind of push us in the right direction. Remember that, those rowboats? And try to push us in the right direction. And so with that, I want to thank you. And my email is there. If you have any questions, comments, ideas, or you want to get on a team, please do reach out to me. Let me know. We have our Founders Awards will be tomorrow. They start at 7. I'm super excited to have our inaugural Champion of Diversity awards that we will be giving out to your colleagues that were nominated by either you or your colleagues. And so super excited about that. And then we have our Ovid Butler medal that we will be awarding tomorrow as well. And then Thursday here in the Riley Room, so the ceremony is here tomorrow, but on Thursday we will also have, it's our Founders Day of Service. I'm really personally committed to service, and so we have a variety of activities and things that you can take part in. From 3 to 6 in particular, you can come and help stuff bags that we will be providing to the MLK Community Center for the children. So you'll be able to come and pack snack bags with us. So thank you so much for joining. I will let you get back to your day. I'm sorry I took a couple more minutes than necessary, but I hope to see you at the other Founders events, and I'll kind of hang around if you have any additional questions.